Hello, everybody. We're live for the very last profile reading and the very last explanation of what the 12th profile is. And today we are basically coming back to the very first profile because we started from the end with the 6-3. We've been going down to the profiles that are more personal. So today we're doing the 1-3. And I have a chart that we're going to read at the end. And first, we are just going to go into the lines, line 1 and line 3, what they mean, and what they mean when you have the first line first and the third line second. And Simone is going to come in and speak through the 1-3 and give us a perspective that is less mechanical and technical and more kind of soul embodiment of this profile. And I know that there are many of you that have been waiting for a long time, so I'm excited to do this. It's fun when we have those profiles where there are 15-20% of the population. And there is something interesting with the 1-3 that is also that you are investigators and you want to go to the bottom of things. So that's what we are going to do today. We're going to investigate, dive deep into this profile. So the first line is personality line. This is where the sun was when you were born. So when you have the first line as in the first position of your profile, you are here to be an empowered lighthouse, basically. You're here to be individual, here to be empowered, and you also want to get the foundation of things. And I work with somebody who has a first line in her life's work, or her personality sun, and she's often like, oh, stop the horses. What's the plan? Can we go back to the message platform? What are we communicating to the world? So it is to always make sure that foundation is stable, that there is that it's stable, that it's safe, that it works. And then from there is all this creation that can happen. And this is when we speak about the house of the I Ching, where is the first line in the house? Well, it's in the basement, because it goes down and it tries out, it rewrites the message platform like 300 times until it's sure that it's waterproof. And then it goes out in the world and it can communicate it. And when it comes out with whatever it is that it's been testing and developing and creating, we are going to often see that it's something that hasn't been spoken, it hasn't been communicated before. It's something new. That's why the process of like going in and then the spark that comes out of that. And it's going to be something that has been researched, that has been investigated, that has been analyzed. So if you are a parent to a child that has a first line, you want to let them really just dive into what they are interested in, even if it's a little bit weird to you, even if it's something that people usually aren't interested in, to allow the first line to be so immersed in that and to be on its own with it. It's not really like the second line, for example, that it needs a playmate or it needs a dance partner to do it. It's really a solitary process. But then when it comes out, it's in an empowered way, and then it's ready for win-win relationships. So that kind of takes us into a little bit like the shadow side of the first line, since it's so comfortable with going about things on its own, that know that it's a win-win in relationship can sometimes sit kind of deep in. And it's a trial and error now for the 1-3 to really understand that relationship can be win-win, and which relationships can be win-win. Not all can be win-win. And that is also when the first line is empowered, other people can feel a bit intimidated. And it's important here for the first line to not be afraid of being that lighthouse, and also to not be afraid of your own potential. It's going to be a bit brighter, than many others. It's going to be empowered. And it's very important, me coming from a Nordic culture, like we were told that we are supposed to not have more color, not have more money, not have more cars, and not be strange in any way to our neighbors, to the people around us. So for me, that has been a deconditioning. And that for the first time is something really that you want to get off you, because if you are not allowed to glitter in your own creation, then it's a life not really worth lived. And I feel I want to again just bridge right away into the third line. So the third line, we have or actually Well, the first line is the earth chakra. How I want to bridge it. The first line is earth chakra. It's that foundation. It's that density. In the Gene Keys, we speak about the bone. So really that depth, and it's important for it to be honest about itself, to be able to communicate so that those relationships can happen. The third line, that is the soul line in this personality, what we kind of see after we have understood the personality in the first line, it's very different. It's fire, it's desire, it's third chakra, and it's going to burn itself. It's going to try things out. So it's in a little bit, it's a paradox to have this first line that needs to investigate, need things to be safe, needs to have the foundation, and then in the soul you have this third line that's just gonna bump into things and stumble. So for the if the 1-3 doesn't accept this about your nature, you can be really angry at your own failures. You can actually really even start to hate yourself because of you falling down the stairs, and you're like, why did I have to fail again? Why did I have to do that? And that's the nature, that's the beauty. It would actually be weird to have powerhouses that never fail. So what we can see in the 1-3, that part of that investigation is that you fall down and you're like, oh, that didn't work. So you are constantly, even if you think that you're safe in the basement, life is going to bring you things where you stumble, and you're going to learn by doing what works and what doesn't work. And that third line is about playfulness. So many times I see 1-3s that take so much responsibility on your shoulders. And you have to be the anchor. It's kind of what you feel. And then it kills the playfulness in that third line. The third line is about playfulness, even promiscuity, even like one interaction today and another interaction tomorrow, and not necessarily the same lover all the time, and not necessarily stay. It's about play. It's about tasting life. And it's about being able to stumble, and also not having other people telling you that shaming you for it. So, but I would say for the 1-3, the most important thing is not other people shaming you, it's actually you shaming yourself. That's what I really want you to break out from. To be like, my life is a process where I learn by doing. And if people ask me, I'm going to have some kind of experience. You be the one that says, oh, I don't know if this vaccine is, if it's serious or not. I'm going to put it in myself so I can figure out for myself, and then I'll tell you. There is something really courageous, empowered 1-3 that knows that you're able to deal with life, that you kind of want to taste it to know if it works and it doesn't work. It doesn't matter if another person says, I know. You know for yourself. And that third line is really robust. When you fall down, when something happened, it's almost like, since you have that strength in you, you are going to be able to do like, oh, that was messy, and get up. So important for you to see it as a learning process and not shaming yourself. And the same thing goes for parents, of course, with children with a third line. And the last thing I'm going to say is that since the third line is the soul, shaming a soul, that is sacrilege. That's a weird way to say, like, that's a weird thing to say, but that's what's coming through. If you shame the third line in the soul, you are actually kind of cutting off or creating a crack in the soul journey of that soul. So almost even more important when it's in the soul to kind of look at them and see their strength and see how many times they have fallen down before they become empowered, and to look at them and actually admire that in the 1-3, and allow them to go there. Allow them to go there, because that's how they're going to tell us what works and what doesn't work. So I think that's it. And Simone, I would love you to come in and see if we can allow your tuning into the 1-3 profile and what the message is, bridging some of the things that I was bringing through.
Let's see what the 1-3 has to say. The 1-3 profile starts with, I want to go there with you. That's the first thing it says. I want to be in the heart of it, in the thick of it. The 1-3 wants to be right there in the middle, and it says that when in its wholeheartedness, failing is not an issue. It can hold failure when it's in its wholeheartedness. And that it really, really wants to have the whole realm of experience, that it wants to investigate everything. Like nothing is out of bounds for it. It really is interested in every facet of life. And it realizes that it's showing me that in human embodiment, individuals want to focus here or focus there or focus here. But to the 1-3, to the soul of the 1-3, it finds everything fascinating, researchable. And it does that investigation that with so much love in its heart. Like it just really wants to just embrace it all. And the way that the 1-3 is showing me this is there's it's like one being in a group of beings that are in this collective investigation. And it just shows me how much it loves being in the thick of the fray, and that it has this awareness that what it's interested in a moment might be different from what's other people in the collective are investigating. And it has this awareness that all of the investigations are important. And now it's showing me that it's kind of leaving this group kind of collective investigatory area, and it is kind of going off, marching off like onto its own, and it feels like it got what it needed, and now it's going for further exploration inside. And it's like it feels like it walked off by itself, and then it took out this massive book out of its heart. And it's like it's researching in, flipping through the book that's in its heart. And now it's writing in the book, like, adding to this book of life, if you will, this book of the heart. And it, kind of closes the book and puts it back in its heart. And when it puts it back in its heart, it's almost like that process renewed it, refreshed it, energized it for the next stage of the journey. And then it's like it starts walking, and then there's another collective group that it's like super excited to go and join and be a part of. And I can see it, it's like circling kind of the outside of this new group, and figuring out where does it want to penetrate the group? Does it want to stay on the periphery? What is it going to do? But there's this, almost like this excitement to, here's another group to investigate with, another collective to be a part of. And then it's kind of like scratching its head, and it's like it starts to touch the book in its heart, and it's like discerning, is this the group for me? And it doesn't feel like good in its body to like actually penetrate this group. And so it's okay with that. Like, it's like, oh, okay, I've discerned this isn't the group I want to penetrate. It's not the group I want to be a part of in the collective. It's not making itself wrong. It's not making that group wrong. Just there's a discernment that based on what's the book of its heart, that's not the place to explore, to investigate, to penetrate. And then it just kind of scratches its head, and it's like going back to the tree, that it feels comfortable in. And then in that contemplative process, just in the walk from the second group back to the tree, it's already inspired again to look somewhere else. And one of the things I'm loving about what the 1-3 is saying is that this, well, first off, the discernment, but also that there's this process that it's kind of revealed to us of exploring with others and exploring in the self, the contemplation, the book of the heart, writing notes, how that inspires and creates the desire for other journeying. And it feels like I was going to say this was a quest, and when I like really brought my attention back to the 1-3, it's like the 1-3 is saying this is the quest of life, that it's the investigation of life, and there's no in a sense wrong investigation, that all investigations are worth it if they come from the heart. Whether the investigation is done alone or with the collective. The 1-3 says it would be very lonely without some investigation with the collective, that it enjoys both. It enjoys the collective investigation and it enjoys the internal investigation. And just one or just the other is, it said, denial of the self. To just have a collective investigation or just have an internal self-directed investigation is a denial of the self. It's a not wholehearted with the truth of who the 1-3 is. That the space for both of those is essential to the growth, to the investigation, to the life, the journey of life, the investigation through life. And that when it's wholehearted, it's not afraid of either. It's not afraid of the independent, singular journey, the journey within. It's not afraid of going into the group to investigate. In its wholeheartedness and imbalance, it understands how the internal journey or the individual investigation feeds the collective, the exploration and investigation with the collective, which in turn then catalyzes and fuels in the internal and self-directed investigation. And that it's saying that the chief challenge, or one of the biggest challenges for the 1-3 profile, is to understand how to weave those investigations and explorations, how to weave the internal journey and the collective journey, the self-directed journey and the collective group journey, and to understand how to navigate that pathway within the self. That's the sweet spot. So it would like to talk with you. Let's have a conversation. Let's get collective.
Maybe just mute your microphone a little bit. So I see that Alex is on and he's in the CLN community. And I know that he has been looking forward to the 1-3. Ashley and I actually did a mini reading for him. So I didn't bring up his chart, but I feel like the 1-3 might have a little bit of a message for him. He's Ace of Fates in the comments, but I would just see if there is a quick message for Alex that we could bring through.
Let's see what the 1-3 has to say for Alex. Your intentional journeying within can sometimes be confusing. It's like it's showing me that you have some perceptions about how investigation is done. It's like, I'm going to use the word conditioning. It's not using the word conditioning. What it's using is like you put up these belief walls or barrier walls that keep you from understanding the flow of investigation. And the 1-3 profile says to you, if you can let those walls kind of go down, let them down, it'll create some freedom in your life for new investigations and new ways of investigating that will be so fulfilling beyond what you could imagine, that you've left a lot of your soul on the table, like in the closet, if you will, and you're not accessing it. And the way that life can be fulfilling, you haven't even really, it's almost like it's showing it to me like this. Imagine that these barriers are up there and you can just see over the fence, right? And sometimes you have to work at seeing over the fence, but if you let these beliefs and barriers down, that you will, it's like run on the playground and not have to watch from behind the fence. And it'll be so fulfilling beyond what you could possibly imagine. And it's, you're the 1-3 profile is taking me to your heart. And in a sense, it's like the outward metaphor that the 1-3 just used for you is also an inner metaphor, that you kind of have that barrier up a little bit in your heart, and you're almost looking over the fence in your heart. And when you let the barriers go down in your external world, what's going to happen is you're going to develop some trust within yourself to allow those internal walls to go down. And the 1-3 says for you that it's about discernment, that discerning, start with what you trust. You got to trust something. And what is the thing that you trust? And then explore there and develop your discernment of what you trust. And you'll live more in your heart, which will get you more to this flow between the internal and external, or group explorations. And the 1-3 ends with, does this make sense?
Thank you, Simone. That was a little spontaneous thing. Let's see. I know that you and I have to go to the inner circle in just like 15 minutes. So I'm going to bring up the charts. I'm going to let you, Alex, comment if you want in the chat. I also know we have a few questions like Chris that I want to get to, but to start with, I'm just going to bring up Tressa, who is also part of the Conscious Leadership Network. And she posted her charts 4 months ago when we started this journey. So I'm so happy to finally get her charts. And I almost want to start with this one. So she's a 1-3. And if you look at her profile, the 1-3 is the gate 7, 13, 2, and 1. So you see that in an open G center, she has all these gates. And when there's an open center, we know there's no consistent energy. So basically, she has this power to know who she is, know where she's going, knowing what love is, not from like being kind of outside concentrated, but like from herself. And at the same time, she's always going to have to filter other people's purpose, other people's identity, other people's direction, and make sure that she's true to herself. So what is important? Well, she's completely open. Head, Ashna, throat, G, and even like completely open in the ego. So there, she's always going to have all this input, what other people think, other people's ideas, what the pressure to say what people want to hear, the pressure to kind of promise and to show up and to do. That's never going to be her place of anchoring. The place or anchoring for her in order to have that direction and also being able to guide others by her own empowerment is to come down into the body, be in her sacral energy, be grounded, be in her vitality, be in her intuition in the now. That is how that's how her life force can be anchored and her kundalini can be unobstructed. And also, she's here to feel a lot. She's here to seek those experiences. There is a lot of fire when we look at the 30 and a 1-3. The 3 is the fire, it's the third is desire. And the 30 in the I Ching is fire over fire. So there is a lot of fire here. There is a lot of adventure. And it comes from being grounded in the body. And then there is a superpower in having this G, that is your incarnation cross. That's what I would say in this one. And there is something And we look at the same thing in the gene keys. There is something here where if you just listen to what's going on in the world, you could be discouraged. And maybe this ties into Alex a little bit. Like, you could be discouraged if you just like listen to everything. You could feel kind of lonely and that you see where humanity is going, but it could feel kind of lonely. And I would like you to come into your body. I would like you to come into your playfulness. I would like you to come into your femininity, the beautiful play of Shakti. And I would also ask you to know that there's going to be melancholy in your life. There are going to be moments where it feels confusing or depressing. And that is part of like the soil, because you are here to spark. Your magnetism is here to spark, but it's not like turned on all the time. Except that if fire would burn all the time, then you would burn yourself. So that's why you're going to have to learn to appreciate the sparks of life and come back to your body and see how your very unique direction is going to be spoken through you when you come back to your body, to your feminine, to your masculine, when you allow melancholy to be a fuel instead of kind of making you anxious. That's what I would say for you, Tressa. And Simone, I would love to hear what the 1-3 has to share with Tressa.
Well, the first thing that the 1-3 does is it shows me like her holographic profile, her hologenetic profile, and it's almost like, imagine that were a pinball game, and it's showing me these balls that are, this ball that is kind of like bouncing around inside of the whole and there's some places where it gets stuck, and then it goes out, and then it and it's over here on the left side of the profile that the ball spends a lot of time in, from the IQ, and yeah, and the 1-3 profile says some of this is not really fun. That part of the 1-3 profile is that it wants to have fun. It wants to have a good time. The investigation, the internal investigation, the self-directed investigation is fun. The investigation with the group is fun. And there's something that keeps you like pinging within yourself that is really not fun. And the 1-3 profile wants to remind you that the journey is you designed the journey to have some fun and to learn to get out of the and it feels like I would love to ask Tressa, because of the way it's coming up or coming through, is, do you get in your head and do things like, where does the boom 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 between things show up for you? I would love to ask you that. And the 1-3 profile is speaking to you about embodiment and really feeling into your second and third chakras and grounding in the self. That when you are connected with the truth of yourself, that pinging does not occur, because you have such awareness of the internal structure of what you want. But it's like you, somewhere along the way, you lose confidence in what in your being, truth of what you want to investigate and with whom. And when you get off your track, that's when the kind of the pinging back and forth goes. And the 1-3 profile says, when you can ground in the self, and as you develop more and more clarity in the self, you'll notice that that kind of pinball-y bouncing will calm, will settle, and then you have clarity of vision, if you will, because it comes from your embodiment. And it says that's what I would like to say.
Thank you, Simone. I love that. And Clarity is the 57, and the 34 is the sacral, the energy, the body. So really, I feel like a lot of what you're speaking of is what we were saying in other words before, but it's in the mechanics of it. And the 30, 41, you have it, Simone, so it wants to experience, it wants to have fun. So I love it. Yeah. Let's go to the question that we had. So what does the investigation look like? As a generator, does it have to be an outward seeking? That's a very good question, right, Simone? Would you like to tune into that?
The 1-3 feels like it's like I've answered that. It's like really clear. It's like, no, sometimes it's an internal investigation. Sometimes it's a group investigation. Sometimes it's a self-directed investigation. Sometimes it's an like now I'm getting what he was showing us about the exploration. Like he was like, oh, this looks good over here. Let me go explore. And then the exploration, he discerned that no, that wasn't really the group that he wanted to go, but he got some, he took notes for his book in his heart, and it wasn't fruitless. That experience of exploration wasn't fruitless. So, self-directed, internal, exploratory, group, it's giving a lot of different ways that investigation will works for a 1-3. And he goes, there's infinitely more.
Yeah, I wanted to say as well, Simone, the way that we have started to create our programs, before they were like shorter modules, and now we have this longer things where we go over a year because of that investigation. Because many times with 1-3, it's like, we have like a module goes over a month and they're like 2 or 3 things a week. And then it's like, oh, it was already over, but it hasn't been the time for that, I guess, as well, the exploration on your own. So remembering, that 1-3s usually, like you say, have to do that inner exploration and the outer exploration, but there is no time if we just go super, super fast. So that feels very true. And I think maybe the last question that we can bring up, and it's a short, a kind of quick question before we have to go, would love a message on how the 1-3 works for reflectors. Is there anything specific for that wants to come through?
Yeah, I'll ask the 1-3. He wants to say one other thing. Like he's showing me that sometimes the exploration is a really high view. So he showed it to me almost like as in a helicopter, like he was like looking, like he was above the fray and he was looking down, investigating, charting. And then he showed me another investigation where he was literally in the earth and he was getting that the investigation was coming through the vibration of the earth. So, like other kinds of investigations. So let's see what the 1-3 has for reflectors. He says, this is the tricky part, because he's showing me that as a reflector at the group, on the outskirts of the group, says a 1-3 reflector is on the outskirts of a group. And if you're not aware that you're reflecting, that journey in the group is not going to feel so great in your body. What will feel better is the internal or the self-directed exploration, but it's a real missed opportunity. So when the reflector knows its job is to reflect, and it goes into that big, it's almost like the house of mirrors, right? And it's laughing. The 1-3 is really kind of laughing. So he puts the 1-3 reflector in the middle of this big group, and it realizes that it's it's like the moving house of mirrors. It understands that it's reflecting it's not taking it all personally. And it's having fun with being with the role of being a reflector. And it, one thing I'm noticing about it through the images that it's showing is like it doesn't take itself so personally when it's a reflector in the group, that it's really got a sense of lightheartedness, which is saying that some hologenetic profiles are designed to take things personally. But when you have the awareness that the reflection is not the personal thing, that's a much more fulfilling exploration. That the internal investigation there is then, how do you feel reflecting, this house of mirrors, and in the fray, that the way you feel about that role is the internal investigation, not everything that you've been reflecting. And so, the social exploration investigation is more lighthearted than it says. Then I would say to the other 1-3 reflectors, there's kind of almost an essentialness about lightheartedness there.
Thank you, Simone. So, what else? Well, we are going to go into the inner circle, which is where we're going to do from now on. We're probably almost never going to take like just random profiles. In order for you to be chosen for these kinds of chart readings and other things, it's going to be in our inner circle membership group, and that's as low as like $22 to $33 per month. So I'm going to put the link to that. And I also just want to say it's not too late to come into our 13-month journey, Business by Design. And that's what I'm saying. If you want to investigate Business by Design, like to see how can your unique design work as you are embodying your soul, both in your life and in your soul work, like in your business, that's a super cool and deep journey that could be really really fun for 1-3s. And it's also an investigation we're doing together. We've never done this program before, so I'm going to put the link for that as well. And Simone, do you have any closing word for everybody?
Oh my gosh, just thank you for being on the journey with us, and so great to see so many of our friends who have been with us along the way throughout this, just saying hey, and thank you so much for joining us. And I'm just super excited about our Business by Design journey, but I'm also excited about what's coming up in April, which is transiting the wheel and going through each gate as we move through. This will be Bella and I's second round through the wheel together, because we worked on the 64 doors last year all the way together. And if you are on our mailing list, you would get some of our personal reflections on that journey through together. So if you're not already and that would excite you, join our mailing list, and you can get some of our own personal, yay, Monica pod. Thank you for that. Thank you for the pod love. But it's another way to engage with us. Bella, Ashley, and I all write from our hearts in our newsletter. So if you'd like to engage with us in that way, we'd love to have you be a part.
Yeah, and all the 1-3s, you have all the links wherever you watched, so you can just go and investigate those 3 programs or these 3 options for you and find out what's right for you. That's so important for the 1-3. Like, what are the win-win relationships? What are the win-win courses? What are the win-win situations? So important for you to investigate so that it feels anchored and true, that that's what you go with. And then sometimes you're going to stumble anyway. So that's kind of that's the funny thing for you guys. Okay, and we are going to go in. So I see there are some people from Inner Circle. So we are changing container. So see you inside, and thank you to everybody else.